Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, taking on a military job is obviously not a job for the faint-hearted, and it requires a lot of discipline and sacrifices. Members of the Nigerian military deployed in the northeast, like some of their counterparts in some troubled regions of the world, have no luxury of celebrating Christmas the way other people do. According to reports, insurgents have always chosen important days like Christmas, Eid-el-Kabir, the Independence Day, to strike with the hope of catching the troops unawares. With this awareness, Nigerian soldiers were on red alert during the Christmas. Well, joining us now to discuss these security strategies in Nigeria is security consultant Dr. Ona Ekhomu. You're welcome to the morning show.
Thank you, Dr. Ekhomu. Good morning. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you, sir.
Well, as Kachi pointed out, 11 Christians were killed during the Yuletide season by the Islamic State for the West African province. And the explanation given, both in the video and the statement issued by ISWAP, is that, look, this is in retaliation against the killing of al-Baghdadi, the ISIS leader and his spokesperson. And when I read that story, my concern was one. Al-Baghdadi was killed thousands of miles away. Why has Nigeria become the target? Is Nigeria now an operational base for ISIS? And if so, how serious is the threat?
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. I appreciate this opportunity. You have to understand what is going on with the jihadis. Let's look at just a global picture. The ISIS was denied its operational bases in Syria and Iraq by retaking those lands in Libya, Libya, Western Libya, retaking the areas where it occupied. Now, but back in 2015, on March 1st of 2015, Shekau pledged bayat, that's loyalty, to al-Baghdadi, meaning that, and Baghdadi accepted at the same time. Now, in August 2016, al-Baghdadi installed Abu Musab al-Banawi, the son of the former leader, the killed leader of Boko Haram, Mohammed Yusuf, as the emir, as the leader now of Boko Haram, which appointment Shekau resisted, but we now had a splintering of the group. We now had the ISWAP group, because they named it Islamic State of West African Province, and you had Boko Haram Central. Now, so that's what has been on ground. That's what we've been dealing with. And when Mr. Banawi was appointed, he came up with a mission statement which said, we will do this, we will resist the Christianization of our youth via IDP camps, which is why they are attacking IDP camps. We will continue to attack the military. We will continue to attack Christians, and so on and so forth. So he gave a list of things, his to-dos that he wanted to accomplish. Now, so let's bring it home now. The American Special Forces killed al-Baghdadi in Syria during an operation. Well, they didn't kill him. They forced him to kill himself because he actually detonated a bomb that was on him. And so he died. And now they murder 11 Christians on Christmas Day and say it's a Christmas gift for Nigerians, quite tragically. Now, what is the connection? Here, they are saying that, in fact, the word they used was, I say, revenge for the killing of Baghdadi. So they're saying that Islamic State, whether it's in the Maghreb, whether it's in the Sahel, because we now have Islamic State of Sahel, whether it's in the Indian subcontinent, wherever it may be, is one. And so if you attack our leader, or if you kill our leader, then you have hurt us, and we're going to hurt you back. So that's just the reasoning, the sick reasoning that was, that informed that particular killing. But I think I am more inclined to think that why they did it is because they could, not really because there was any real reason for it. They could do it. They had these captives. And so the question is, why?
That brings me to my question. The fact that they're able to do this. The president and the defense headquarters have repeatedly said Boko Haram has been defeated, it has been decimated. Are you concerned that the insurgents are able to cause such damage, carry out these strikes, and still cause this damage? And can we expect it to get worse if the world doesn't step up to do something? Because now it's global.
It's a global fight, yeah. Now, this killing of 11 Christians is an opportunity for Nigeria to make another call to the West for assistance. Because Boko Haram was unequivocal in his statement that this is why we did this. Mm-hmm. And I think we deserve some help here, which is what I said in a release that came out on Friday. We deserve some help here because if they are flogging us because of you, then maybe you should give us some relief. And that is something that's been lacking in this whole Boko Haram thing. We've not really gotten significant help from the Americans. After the seizure of the Chibok girls, President Obama at the time placed a drone station in Niger to do ISR flights. ISR is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance flights over the Sambisa forest. And in fact, they were able to pick up some chatter, which was inadvertently revealed by some people, and Boko Haram relocated the people. I just heard you asking about Iya Sharifu with your previous guest. It's not really that easy to secure the release of these people once they are in their custody because they move them out of the country. They have so many things they do, with these people. So once they have them captive. But in the case of, in the early days of the Chibok issue, we actually got chatter, which again I said was inadvertently revealed. But having said that, I think we need to get a lot more assistance because we've had things like the Leahy Act get in the way before when the U.S. refused to sell us weapons under President Obama.
The grounds of human rights violations.
Human rights violations and so on and so forth. There's been a lot of messaging, a lot of narrations that have kind of maybe made the world, the Western world at least, not support Nigeria as much as it should in the fight against Boko Haram. But what I have tried to do personally as a private citizen is explain to the Americans as best as I can that it's the same problem we have. They have the problem of ISIS, we have the problem of ISIS. Mm-hmm. And that in helping us, they're also helping themselves. Yeah. And I think that is a logic that we can peddle right now. But it's a big concern, but
it is. It certainly is. Now, speaking on the issue of how to, curb this menace, I'd like to bring up the statement by the Chief Justice of the Federation, a few days ago, where he expressed his desire to include more components of the Sharia law in the Constitution. Now, at a conference in 1978, there were talks as well on how to extend the Sharia law beyond family law. And of course, Christian delegates at the conference, protested, and it caused, such a great stir. And we've seen conversations like this through the years happening. So with this in mind, Nigeria is not an Islamic state. So if you can, as the Chief Justice of the Federation, come out to express your desire to make this part of the law, this family law, more part of the Constitution, how does this either help or even alleviate the problem?
Well, I'm not an expert in Sharia law or even... I'm a Christian, but I'm not also an expert in Christian law. I'm not sure which one it is. I think the Chief Justice is entitled to his opinion, and I think, and that's what he's expressing. I don't have that statement, so I don't know the context. But I think I'm worried more about the 3 local governments in Borno State, which the governor Zulum has said are under Boko Haram control. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about the attack last week Sunday, mm-hmm. on Damaturu. I'm worried about their capture of many aid workers who will probably again be slaughtered very soon on video. Mm-hmm. I think there's a real crisis on ground. I think we have real terrorism on ground. And if I may add, just as I was waiting in your waiting room here, I said I looked at the issues that are kind of funding this terrorism. I looked at the poverty in the northeast region. I looked at the recycling of Boko Haram members who have been captured and have been said to, quote-unquote, been de-radicalized. How, I don't know. I look at the issue of IDP camps, which have been, even the governor of Borno State has said will be producing new terrorists, will become a recruiting ground. So I call those terrorogenic factors. And I think we should really focus on those. You know, because there are real people dying. Ilia Sharibu is still in captivity. Yeah. Grace Taku, one of the aid workers who was kidnapped, who was captured in Abadan, Moba, along with the other ones that were slaughtered on TV, you know, the ones that were
the action against hunger.
Exactly, AAH workers who were killed, and so on and so forth. I mean, we have real violence and real cruelty going on here. I
guess there is a consensus on that, both locally and internationally.
Yes, sir.
But one thing that has come up is about strategy. Yeah. What is the best strategy to adopt? You've talked about international cooperation.
Yes.
The Nigerian government has been talking about changing the architecture, whatever that means. But eventually, they attempted a review of the national security strategy. Yeah. And the National Security Advisor had given us some insight into that, either with the closure of the border or with their plan to work on mopping up small and light weapons, you know, 1 million of which we're told, you know, is in Nigeria, whatever. But I don't know whether you have seen that national security strategy document. Do you think it's adequate in facing the challenges of the present and of the future? And if not, what do you think that the Nigerian government needs to do locally?
I think it's a good document. It talks about the menu of security challenges that we have. It talks about herdsmen, human trafficking, drug trade. It talks about everything. It's just, you know, you just go there and you pick the one you like. It's not focused on the problem I have is the CT strategy. The national security strategy is a fine document, and it takes a whole man approach, political, economic, religious. It says that everything needs to be in balance for the country to be secure. So it's like the U.S. approach to national security. So it's not the militocratic strategy. So that's okay. And because the problems are different, you know, there's a plethora of problems there. In fact, when I go out, I talk to the military people, I tell them that we have a galaxy of threats. That's really what it is, because we have so many threats in this part of the world, in this country. It's almost scary, and they have to confront them. But having said that, I think my real issue is that we should look at the strategy for combating Baba Boko. That's my problem. I'm not interested in all. I mean, please, I'm interested. They are all important. And there are competent agencies. NAPTIP is there, struggling with some elements. NDLEA is struggling with whatever. It has its own schedule. And then the border people are doing their thing, which is fine. And it should be coherent. And the National Security Advisor and his people should address those. But then what is our CT strategy? What is our strategy to win this war? Now, I have a couple problems I want to, if I have a second, to share with you. For example, we've been talking about this super camp strategy that the military is using in Northeast. We have huge encampments which are insurgency attack-proof, which is good. It's good for force protection. You ride rapid response.
Dr. Ekhomu, sorry to interrupt you. We need to take a short commercial break.
No problem.
When we come back, you continue with this analysis of super camp strategy, whether it's working or not. You're still watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us in our studio in Lagos is Dr. Ona Ekhomu. Dr. Ekhomu is president of the Association of Industrial Security and Security Operators of Nigeria. He's a certified protection officer, instructor, and a chartered security consultant. Now, Dr. Ekhomu, before we went on break, you were reviewing the strategy adopted by the military, and you were taking a look at the super camp strategy, as you called it.
Thank you very much. And so, it's a good strategy, and it's good for force protection. It's good for the protection of citizens within its beating zone. That means the immediate environment. But what we have, what is facilitating these vulnerabilities, like I said, why would they cut the throats of those men? Because they could. And what is making that possible is that there's too much vulnerability out there. What is the vulnerability now? Ungoverned spaces. Borno State is the largest state in the country. You can take 3 or 4 southeastern states and dump it in there, and it will still have change left. And the problem with that is you can't put a camp in, let's say, in Monguno and think that it will cover Marite, Abadan, Kukawa. It's not possible. It won't work because the distance is too large to make that happen. And so what is happening is the bad guys are cashing in on that vulnerability, and they are able to run patrols and, in fact, take over places. Now, you are doing rapid response, which is good. And then with our good air power now, we're able to go in there once we get the information. But what is the calibration? How are we able to calibrate? Are we able to measure? Because in security, we must measure the effectiveness of your strategies. Are we able to measure how long it takes for somebody to call in a distress and then for us to scramble jets out there? What about roadway attacks? What about attacks? The first thing they do, even kidnappers and even robbers, the first thing they do when they attack anybody, they say, give me your phone. So you can't call anybody. So once you've been isolated from your means of communication, what are your options? So you see, the thing is, I know that we don't have enough military and they can't be everywhere. We only have a 150,000 man military, which is very small, even compared to our size and our population. We have a country like Egypt with about 1 million man military, and we are almost twice the size of Egypt. So there's a disconnect here somewhere. So, number one, we need to increase the size of our military. That's a longer-term issue. But what I have called for practically to, in fact, address this threat is a troop surge. Surge in 10,000 troops into that theater and let them run serious patrols. Now, many of my friends in the military have come back to me and say, well, if you surge in the troops, what about the equipment? I say, yes. You can't send a farmer to the farm without cutlass. So when I say surge in the troop, I mean provide everything, the logistics and all. And so that is one of the things, even just yesterday here, I've heard from a lot of serving and retired generals that, listen, our problem is we don't have enough logistics to make this thing happen. We want to make it happen, but we don't have enough. So these are things that we think the government should really, because we need to kill this insurgency. Of course, people will tell you, oh, America has been fighting insurgency in Afghanistan for so many years. They are not fighting. Afghanistan is not American soil. That's on another soil. But this is Nigerian soil. Borno State is Nigeria. This is Nigerian soil. And, can we bear for it to be destroyed continuously like this? And now the problem in the region, that's why I started with a regional analysis. What is happening in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Ivory Coast. That is all part of the problem here in Nigeria. It's a jihadi march. Marching westward, eastwards, and, southwards into Nigeria. And that is what you are seeing here.
Well, you've talked about the international collaboration that this can change the dynamics of this. But I'm curious and I'm concerned because this video of killing Christians on Christmas Day was released barely days after the United States had designated placed Nigeria on that special watch list for religious persecution, and also designated Boko Haram as a particular entity of concern. Was this a springboard of attention that the Boko Haram needed that was provided by such? And what can we do regionally? Because you're right, is Africa and the Sahel region that is facing all of this. What sort of collaboration can we now do? Can we use that to our advantage? Because like the case of the Chibok girls in 2014, it was that singular act that gave the Boko Haram insurgency the global attention it needed. Was this another springboard for them? And how can we use that to our advantage?
Well, Boko Haram is a terror group. Now, take you back to French Revolution, 1795, La Reine de la Terreur. What they did there was do very atrocious things to, maybe, things that defied logic. Mm-hmm. And that's what terrorism is about. It's the cruelty, it's the wickedness, it's the
surprise element.
Yeah, surprise element, the whatever. Of course, certainly getting attention. That's why we are talking about it right now, too, because of what they did. Now, having said that, I think I don't want to relate the U.S. listing of Nigeria as a country of concern. There are so many things. I think your former guest did a good job of that. There are so many things that have been going on that they could point to. Boko Haram has been a bad boy for 10 years. This conflict has been on since, 26th of July, 2009, with the Dusin-Tashi attack. Well, if you want to really go back, it started from 11th of June, 2009, with the killing of the 17 funeral procession Boko Haram people, and which was mishandled. Misgovernance, which was mishandled and which brought us to this very sorry present that we are in. So, mishandled them by that government in Borno State. And certainly the federal authorities didn't read it well, and they read the tea leaves wrong, and they took decisions that have brought us where we are. So we've been in this crisis for a very long time. We didn't start today, and we've seen greater atrocities from these guys. So this is like Christmas gift to us. That's why I called it,
So if we're looking at you've mentioned
because they could have killed more.
They could have, but
because they have more. What if they slaughtered Elia Sharibu, God forbid, on TV? They could have done more worse things.
So are you saying now that because you're saying they could have done more? It could have been worse.
They have many more captives.
Exactly. So what is the way forward? What do we need to do? Because it's basically now a situation of...
Yes.
Sorry. It's basically now a situation of, okay, they will continue. It will happen. And
the atrocities will continue.
It will continue.
It will not stop. And they're not going to have a change of heart.
Okay,
so we need to stop them. Doomed. That's what I'm saying. So, no, we are not doomed at all. Governor Zulum, the present governor of Borno State, when he was coming into office, he said he would hire 10,000 youths as vigilantes. That is big help if he did that. If he did that, you take those men, you will train them, give them musketry training, and give them indoctrination, and they will help patrol. The problem is that's what I mean by ungoverned spaces. There are voids. There are areas
which... You also mentioned the mismanagement of resources. Now, if we look at the root causes and we look at the solutions, you will realize that some of these root causes are fueling the inability of these solutions to work. You're talking about, deployment of the vigilantes, for example, in Borno.
It's a good idea.
It's a good idea. But how do we know that the resources to help these people are going to be well managed? How do we know that the resources that will help these people be effective are going to be well managed? Because we've seen this happen time and time again.
Yeah.
The causes of the problem, disenabling the solution.
Leadership is situational. Zulum is there now. Perhaps he might have better luck with solving this problem. That's at the local level. For example, the state is the one funding the CJTF, civilian JTF, and they work hand in hand with military. Now, what we need is another level of civilianized security, armed, because they are facing a projectile threat, that's an armed threat, civilized security, armed, that will patrol the countryside, such that these voids that we are seeing, now that super camp strategy that the military has will work very well, because they will now provide rapid response. The civilized security will provide initial response, and the military will provide rapid response. That they will provide because we are facing a grave threat. These guys, these Boko Haram guys, they are well armed. But we've seen them dislodged by hunters throughout Borno State. And so what I'm saying is at all that is the problem. Not having any firepower, not having any capability to respond is the issue here. It's not that our military is capable, our military is good, they are lethal. Like we commonly say, when they go overseas on these PKOs, they are the best. Yeah, but at home here,
we need to make a difference. Yeah.
It's a problem.
And we need to. Too. So let me take you back to the point you made earlier on about the armed forces.
Yes, sir.
You say we have a strength of about 150,000. Yes, we have issues with logistics. We have issues with equipment. Now, if you have all these deficits, then what security strategy is the federal government talking about? But that's not my question. If we don't have enough soldiers, why is it that on a regular basis we see these same soldiers who have a major assignment in the Northeast corridor being deployed for elections, being deployed to do police work? Only last weekend in Abuja, soldiers were helping to go and arrest armed robbers. And some Nigerians said, look, I mean, can't we find better use for these soldiers? How come soldiers will now be pursuing armed robbers and pursuing kidnappers up and down? Yeah. So do you see that as a problem? Or you think...
no, it's not a problem at all. It's quite consistent and coherent. In 2013, I was a victim of a kidnap incident in Edo State, or attempted kidnap in my case. And I fought the kidnappers and ran, thank God, for my safety. But my wife, who was taken away, was saved by soldiers, JTF personnel, on the road who engaged the kidnappers and discharged over 5,000 bullets, presumably based on the amount of firing, the number of persons firing, and the length of time the battle took before they were able to rescue her. And I thank God for the military any day. I thank God for the military. I love them, at least for that personal service. And I believe any and each and all of us here, if we had a situation and the military man came in and intervened, that would be God sent. Okay. Now, having said that, JTF is something that's done out of DHQ, that's Defense Headquarters. It's sanctioned by Defense Headquarters, and it's a multi-service. It's a matrix organization. They bring in SSS agents and different services to address important threats, which they believe, in line with the Army Act, military as aid to civil power. Which they believe if the police cannot handle, they can. Now, in the case of the incident in Mpape in Abuja that you just referenced, the soldiers happened to be in the vicinity. They were patrolling in the vicinity, and the policemen actually believed that they needed the help of the soldiers, and they called them in and they gave help. So it was very appropriate use of force, use of resources.
Beyond that specific example,
yes,
is it a good thing for the military to be over-involved in police work?
No. I've railed against that several times. I've said that we should empower the police so that we can remove the soldiers and put them where we really need them. Because having JTF in 34 states, in fact, I was just corrected recently that it's 35 now. 35 states of the country, that's too much. It means in every state you have a joint task force operating. And these are resources that are scarce resources, like you rightly pointed, sir, that are being drained off, for these civilian and policing operations. These are things that really should fall in the cup of tea of the police agency and the SSS properly. It shouldn't spill it onto the soldiers thing, because they have a hot war going on in the Northeast, and that should be the first and foremost their focus, not policing duties because of the poor security architecture. So we have to go back again and look at that document that you referenced, whether the document will achieve the purposes that it was meant to achieve.
I want to take you back to something you said earlier, the de-radicalization of Boko Haram insurgents. What do you have against the de-radicalization and reintegration of so-called ex-Boko Haram fighters into the society?
I have nothing against it.
Because it's something the Nigerian military has engaging and continue to engage in.
Yes. I have nothing against it, but I have written about it in the past several times. I'm not allowed to plug, but I have a book coming out. You see the book next year. It's coming out in 2020. I have a big book coming out on this subject. Now, is it being done right? Let me give you even the United States. Let me give you a big strategic blunder the U.S. made. U.S. had al-Baghdadi in his custody in a prison in Iraq. And after a few years, they said, he's been de-radicalized, and they let him go. And he said to them as he was leaving, he said, see you in New York. That's what he said. And you see until he was killed recently what al-Baghdadi became to the United States. So, well, yes, there's no art of knowing what is in a man's mind. But I think our processes can be better, it can be well done, a little better done. And then there must be tests to ensure that it's working. But what I see is a vulnerability right now because it's more like a recycling of fighters. Yeah. You hold them for 2 weeks, you say, it's getting expensive to feed these guys. Then you say, okay, they've been radicalized, go. And then guess what is done? They reduce them to the state government, which does not have capacity to monitor these people. So, and you're releasing a lot of them too, not just a few, a lot of these people. So, I have a problem with taking people out of the battlefield and sending them back into the battlefield. And we've seen so many. In fact, one guy who was on trial in Kainji, when the military courts were trying them in Kainji, he said to the military, he said, listen, he said to the judge, he said, if you release me today, I'm going straight back to join my comrades and take up arms and kill more people. So they say, okay, this one, you stay in jail. So how many of them will be that candid, really? Yes, we know that many people were conscripted into Boko Haram ranks. Yeah. Many people were not
they were forced.
They were forced in. And so, those people could really be de-radicalized if they haven't gone too far. But hardcore Boko Haram fighters and having a situation where recruitment is easy and ongoing. I mean, they keep saying, we've killed Boko Haram commanders, we've killed Boko Haram. How many Boko Haram commanders are there? That's the question I keep asking. So you see, that means there's a regrowth, there's a regeneration of fighters and commanders. So there's some kind of a supply. And now with international support from Baba ISIS Central, and it's nowhere anymore anyhow because it's been decapitated, but with the structure that is in place already and with the kind of arms they have, they are still a very potent and dangerous force. So I have a problem. Again, I told you factionalization. In fact, I was just seeing that Mama Nu's faction, which I thought had gone, is still potent. They said some people are being kidnapped right now in Borno State. Mama Nu is dead. But they said they are still being kidnapped by his faction. Meanwhile, we are saying that the two major factions are Boko Central, that is Shekau, and ISWAP. Wow. Which is conducting the attacks in those Kukawa, Abadan, and the north, the ones near the Lake Chad region.
Okay, now.
So that's our conundrum.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on the solutions that you've mentioned. Like, see that as interesting as they are, I'd like to talk of how realistic it is. We've seen the present administration time and time again blame the past administration, say, oh yes, 1999 to 2015, they caused all the issues, this is their fault. Now, we're bringing up this issue, but how realistic is it? It sounds good, it's a well-thought plan, it's a well-thought idea. But what are the odds that it's actually going to happen?
Well, I think it's a question of political will. I think what the government needs to understand, this is really my message, if not in today, that this is still an existent threat. Boko Haram, the wish of government is that it should have been decapitated or whatever they call it, degraded, decimated and all that. That's good. That's the hope and the wish of government. But the reality on ground is that it's still a potent fighting force. It's a potent insurgency, and it needs to be put down.
Yes, and we've been saying this for the past few years.
Yes.
Yes, and we're still hoping that while we have been saying it for the past few years, we're still hoping that they
the
understand
threat is mutating.
It is, because it's
threat
as
is
if
mutating.
it's not being understood. Or do you think there's some lackadaisical attitude towards actually fixing this?
You know something, when they are in my place, they say if you stay in the toilet too long, you start seeing all kinds of flies. So when a threat sits with you for too long, it starts taking on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And that's what we are seeing right now.
Yeah.
You mentioned something.
Yes,
you
sir.
refer to leadership.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know whether, you would like to reflect further on that, or rather you use the word political will. So I convert it to leadership.
Yes.
Have we seen enough in that direction? Particularly in terms of how government tends to contradict itself. On one hand, some government officials tell us that, most of the people responsible for this Boko Haram threat, they are not even Nigerians. They are from Libya, they are from Mali, they are foreigners who have infiltrated Nigeria. And then at the same time, the same government comes forward to say that by January 2020, Nigeria is going to operate a visa-free policy for Africans who want to come to Nigeria. Okay, you get your visa at the port of entry. What of the others who will come in from the over 1,000 kilometers, of our land borders, who may not encounter any kind of resistance? Don't you see a contradiction here, a failure to think through policies properly and to connect them in the national interest for national security purposes?
Okay, there are two things you said there. Number one, the fact that they are not Nigerians. Yes, there are fighters who are not Nigerians. A lot of Boko Haram fighters are Nigerians, Chadians. How is that so? When Muhammad Ali, the guy who radicalized Muhammad Yusuf, the leader of Boko Haram, when he moved to Zagi Biriri or Kanama Yobe, he then ended up in Kanama Yobe. Kanama Yobe was only 7 kilometers from Niger border. And most of the people who came to join him in what they call Little Afghanistan were from Niger Republic. And most of those people who fought the Nigerian troops in that January, that is December 23rd to January of 2003, December 23rd, 2003 to January of 2004, were the Nigerians. And they stood their ground until the military, of course, they destroyed the police when they first came. And the military came and helped to conquer them in that fight. So what I'm saying is that the forces in that area, they have always been intermixed. That is, right from the beginning. That was not Boko Haram, by the way. He radicalized Yusuf and moved off because Yusuf refused to join him in the Hijra. That is to go from a bad place to a good place and then start the holy war, the jihad. Yusuf refused. So from that 2003, this is where intelligence failed woefully. Between that 2003 and 2009, you had a threat incubating and was not identified or detected or even sniffed out by our intelligence forces. And they showed so many signs along the way. The killing of Sheikh Albani, Adam, there were so many things they did. The Panshakera attack in Kano, where they killed 21 policemen, and we couldn't read the tea leaves again. So this is the problem we've had, Doctor, sir, is that we always have this difficulty with intelligence. And we have problem gathering, collecting, and then we have problem analyzing. So I think the infrastructure is changing now. We are beginning to think more in those terms instead of relying on, intuitive intelligence, which we have always done. We are now moving to structured analytic techniques, SAT, of intelligence. And that's where it is. Because you have to read the future. You have to see what's going to happen and intercept it. That's the value of intelligence. It's not respond to an incident after the fact. So, but now, so that's, I'm just giving you, like, in terms of the nationality of fighters, it's always been a mixed nationality. We've always had fighters, and they have been going out. For example, Boko Haram right now is in Mali. They are running operations. They are running operations in Burkina Faso. I mean, Baba Boko, Nigerian Bokos. They are down there running with them because of their cooperation. Maybe they have cooperation pact like we have with, national governments. But having said that, now the visa on arrival thing, well, the kind of threat we see with Boko Haram, we don't see them really flying in. Yes, there was this issue of this ISIS guy who was trying to fly from Jordan or somewhere and was intercepted given visa by Nigerian authorities. Given visa. So it wasn't even visa on arrival. He was granted visa there and he was intercepted. And he was trying to fly in here. So, but that is one out of so many. The problem we see with Boko Haram and with the visa on arrival, I mean, yes, there might be some problem. My problem with it is that it deserved a little more thinking. It deserved a little more analysis. It deserved a little more study and even policy formulation, legitimation, and implementation. And these are the things that are lacking in our country. We don't formulate policy in the public space. We don't try to legitimate them with the people who are going to be affected and then faithfully implement them. We just wake up and we announce policies and, so it's kind of knee-jerk. Very quickly,
two areas of concerns. In all of this, is there at least one thing we are doing right in the fight against Boko Haram that we need to build up on? Secondly, you said the structure is changing, but in all of this, the service chiefs remain the same. Is it really changing? Remember the exclusive interview the president had with Arise on this day at the beginning of this year. He took responsibility for keeping the service chiefs, but he says, I cannot change them in the middle of a war. What are your thoughts, quickly, as we wrap up?
Thank you. Well, we are doing many things right. Okay. The war, of course, we are taking losses, but it's not as bad as it was, where we had so many, almost two-thirds of Borno State under Baba Boko command. We are not there. We don't have Boko Haram running patrols in Lagos. That's a measure of performance for me, importantly since I live here. But having said that, so I think the military is doing very well. Like I said, they are very capable, but they need more resourcing. They need more encouragement. But now, in the question of the military chiefs, I think it's the prerogative of the president to choose who his military chiefs will be. I think it's our prerogative to continue to analyze, to dissect how well they are doing and what results we are seeing. I think until we get some kind of a scorecard that will show perhaps how productive it has been, then there's nothing we can say. Mr. President has the last word.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ekhomu. This has been quite educative.
Yes.
Thank you very much.